In the vast emptiness of space, a small ship drifted silently among the stars. Inside, a family of 4 huddled together in the cramped control room. They weren't human, their blue-tinted skin and silver-flecked eyes marked them as members of the Astari species, once proud citizens of the Galactic Alliance. Now, they were refugees, abandoned by the very civilization they had helped build. Captain Rod, the father, kept his hands steady on the controls despite his exhaustion. His mate, Lynn, monitored the ship's failing systems while trying to comfort their 2 children, young Tel and his older sister Mai. They had been running for 3 weeks now, ever since their home world fell to the Empire. Power levels at 12%, Lynn announced, her voice tight with worry. The silver flecks in her eyes dimmed, a sign of extreme stress among their kind. We won't make it to the next Alliance outpost. Rod's shoulders slumped, but he refused to give up. Their children's lives depended on finding sanctuary. What about that system ahead? He asked, pointing to a cluster of stars on their navigation screen. There's a habitable planet there. Lynn checked the database, then gasped. That's the human system. Earth. She looked at her mate with concern. They're not part of the Alliance. They're considered too primitive, too unpredictable. Too primitive to be noticed by the Empire, Rod pointed out. And from what I remember from the briefings, they're also known to be. He searched for the right word, surprisingly helpful to those in need. A warning light flashed red, and the ship shuddered. Tel, only 6 cycles old, whimpered and pressed closer to his mother. Mai, nearly 12 cycles, stood up straighter, trying to be brave like her father. We don't have a choice anymore, Rod decided. The Empire destroyed our home because we refused to help them build weapons. The Alliance abandoned us because they feared retaliation. Earth might be our only hope. Lynn nodded slowly. I've heard stories about the humans. They're younger than most species, but they're different. They took in refugees from the Rigel conflict when no one else would. What are humans like? Mai asked, her curiosity temporarily overwhelming her fear. The silver flecks in her eyes brightened slightly, the first time since they'd fled their home. They look a bit like us, but their skin comes in many colors, none blue, Rod explained, trying to keep his daughter's spirits up. They're shorter than us, but stronger. And they feel emotions very intensely. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Lynn's fingers flew over the control panel. We're losing power to the engines. If we're going to reach Earth, we need to start our approach now. Rod took a deep breath and adjusted their course. Starting descent trajectory. Mai, Tel, strap yourselves in. This might get rough. As their ship broke through Earth's atmosphere, warning alarms blared. The hull temperature rose rapidly, and several systems failed one after another. Rod fought to keep the ship stable while Lynn frantically tried to broadcast a distress signal on all frequencies. Please, she transmitted in Universal Standard, this is the Astari vessel Dawn Seeker. We are refugees seeking asylum. We have children aboard. Our systems are failing. Please help us. The ship plunged through clouds, heading toward a large landmass. Rod managed to slow their descent, but the ground was coming up fast, too fast. Tel cried out in fear, and Mai reached over to hold his hand. Look! Lynn pointed at their scanner. Multiple vehicles approaching. They're responding to our signal. Through the viewport, they could see aircraft rising to meet them, surrounding their failing ship. A voice crackled through their comm system, speaking in accented Universal Standard, Dawn Seeker, this is Earth Defense Force. We see you're in trouble. We're here to help. Follow our lead, we'll guide you to a safe landing zone. Rod felt tears of relief forming in his eyes as he followed the human aircraft. Behind him, he heard Tel ask, are we safe now, Mother? Lynn watched the human vessels flying protective formation around their ship, and for the first time in weeks, the silver flecks in her eyes shone brightly. I think we might be, little one. I think we might be. The landing wasn't smooth, but it was survivable. As their ship touched down in a large clearing surrounded by military vehicles, Rod finally allowed himself to release his death grip on the controls. His hands shook from exhaustion. He hadn't slept in 3 days, keeping watch while his family rested. "Everyone all right?" he asked, turning to check on his family. Lynn nodded, already unbuckling Tell from his safety harness while Mai helped gather their few remaining possessions, some food, clothes, and the family data crystal containing their most precious memories. Through the viewport, they could see humans approaching their ship. They wore uniforms but didn't carry visible weapons, which Rod took as a good sign. A woman in a white coat led the group, followed by what appeared to be medical personnel carrying equipment. "Remember," Lynn told the children, "humans haven't had much contact with our kind. Try not to be afraid if they seem surprised by how we look." The ship's hatch opened with a hiss of hydraulics, letting in Earth's air for the first time. The atmosphere was breathable for their species, though slightly thinner than what they were used to. Tell sneezed, making Mai giggle despite their nervous situation. The human woman in white stepped forward, her hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "Welcome to Earth," she said in careful universal standard. "I'm Dr. Adams, head of our First Contact Medical Division. We received your distress signal and are here to help. Are any of you injured?" Rod stepped forward, trying to remember the proper human greeting protocols he'd learned years ago. He placed his right hand over his heart and bowed slightly. "I am Rod, captain of the Dawn Seeker. This is my mate Lynn, and our children Mai and Tell. We are unharmed, but exhausted. Our ship," he glanced back at the smoking vessel, "will need extensive repairs." Dr. Adams smiled warmly, and Rod was struck by how similar human expressions were to their own. "Don't worry about the ship right now. Let's get your family somewhere comfortable and safe. We have temporary quarters prepared, and our medical team would like to check you all, just to be sure you're adapting well to Earth's environment." As they walked toward the waiting vehicles, Tell stared wide-eyed at everything, particularly the grass beneath their feet. Their home world had been mostly desert, with cities built in protective domes. Mai was equally fascinated but tried to hide it, attempting to maintain the dignity expected of an older child. "The news of your arrival is already spreading," Dr. Adams explained as they walked. "Our world leaders are meeting to discuss your request for asylum. But I want you to know that Earth has a long-standing policy of helping those in need. We won't turn away a family seeking refuge." Lynn's eyes brightened with hope. "The Alliance told us humans were too primitive to understand galactic politics. But you seem far more advanced than they claimed." Dr. Adams laughed softly. "Oh, we're still learning. But compassion doesn't require advanced technology." She paused, her expression growing serious. "We'd like to know more about why you had to flee, but that can wait until you've rested. For now, let's focus on getting you settled." They approached a large building that looked like it had been quickly converted into living quarters. Inside, they found rooms furnished with beds, chairs, and what appeared to be entertainment systems. The walls were decorated with colorful images of Earth landscapes, and through the windows, they could see gardens where other humans were working. "This used to be a training facility," Dr. Adams explained. "We converted it for refugee housing after, well, you're not the first ones to find sanctuary here. There's a family from the Rigel system down the hall who arrived last month. Their children are about your children's ages." Tell's eyes lit up at the mention of other alien children, and even Mai looked interested. Rod felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. Perhaps here, their children could have something resembling a normal life again. "Thank you," Lynn said softly, the silver flecks in her eyes shimmering with emotion. "We lost everything when the Empire came. We never expected to find such kindness so far from home." Dr. Adams touched Lynn's arm gently. Welcome to your new home. Earth may be considered primitive by galactic standards, but we have a saying here, home is where you're safe. And we'll make sure you're safe here. 3 days had passed since their landing on Earth, and the Astari family was slowly beginning to understand why this primitive planet might be exactly what they needed. While Rod worked with Earth's engineers to salvage what they could from their ship's computer systems, Lynn and the children were discovering the unexpected wonders of their new home. Mother, look! Tel called out, pressing his face against the window of their quarters. Outside, white flakes were drifting down from the sky. Is the air breaking? Lynn laughed, a sound Rod hadn't heard since before their escape. It's called snow, little one. The humans told me about it yesterday. It's frozen water that falls from clouds when the temperature drops. Mai, who had been reading on a tablet provided by their hosts, looked up with interest. Our environmental domes never made weather like this. Can we go outside and touch it? Before Lynn could answer, there was a gentle knock at their door. Dr. Adams entered, accompanied by another family, the refugees from Rigel she had mentioned. Their skin was purple-tinted rather than blue, but their children's excited expressions matched Tel and Mai's perfectly. I thought your children might like to play in their first snow, Dr. Adams suggested. The Rigel children, Pack and Ren, have already experienced 3 snowfalls since they arrived. They'd be happy to show your little ones how to build something called a snowman. The children's play session in the snow turned into an impromptu cultural exchange. Human children from the base staff families joined in, teaching the alien children how to make snow angels and have snowball fights. The adults watched from a covered patio, sharing hot beverages that Dr. Adams called cocoa. The Empire would never understand this, Lynn said softly to Rod as they watched Tel laughing with his new friends. They see strength only in weapons and conquest. But here, strength comes in many forms, finished a new voice. They turned to see an older human approaching, wearing a decorated uniform. He introduced himself as General Torres, the base commander. We've decoded most of your ship's data core, the general continued. We know about the Empire's demand that your people help develop biological weapons, and about your world's resistance. His face grew serious. We also know they're still hunting for survivors. Rod felt his heart sink. Of course, they couldn't hide forever. We understand if this puts Earth in too much danger. We can try to find another. That's not why I'm here, General Torres interrupted. I'm here because Earth's Security Council has reached a decision about your case. We're granting your family, and any other Astari survivors who find their way here, permanent asylum. More than that, we're offering you citizenship, if you want it. Lynn's eyes flickered with surprise. But the Empire, they're far more advanced than Earth. If they find out you're protecting us. The general smiled grimly. Let me tell you something about humans, Mrs. Lynn. We don't take kindly to bullies, no matter how advanced their technology might be. Yes, the Empire has better ships and weapons. But we have something they don't understand, the determination to protect those who need our help, no matter the cost. He gestured to a group of engineers working nearby. Besides, your husband has already helped us understand several flaws in our defensive systems. Together, we might not be so primitive after all. The Empire thinks we're too primitive to be a threat, too primitive to be worth conquering. That's their mistake. As if to emphasize his point, Tel came running up, covered in snow and grinning broadly. A human child and the 2 Rigel children followed, all equally wet and happy. Father. Mother. We learned how to have a proper snow battle. The humans taught us about tactical advantages and defensive fortifications. Rod couldn't help but laugh. Even in play, humans were teaching their children valuable lessons about strategy and teamwork. Looking at his family, Lynn's brightening eyes, Mai's growing confidence, Tel's pure joy, he realized that perhaps they hadn't just found sanctuary. They'd found a place where they could truly belong. "Thank you, General," Rod said finally. "We would be honored to become citizens of Earth. And if the Empire ever does come looking for us, then they'll learn what happens when they threaten a human world's family," General Torres finished. "Welcome home, citizens." 2 months into their new life on Earth, the routine of the Astari family had changed dramatically. Rod now worked full-time with Earth's Defense Force, helping upgrade their systems with his knowledge of Imperial technology. Lynn had taken a position teaching Universal Standard Language to human military personnel, while the children attended a special school set up for both human and refugee kids. But today was different. Rod rushed into their quarters, his expression tense. "Lynn, we need to go to the command center. Now." Lynn looked up from where she was helping Tell with his Earth mathematics homework. "What's wrong?" "Another ship just entered the solar system," Rod said quietly, trying not to alarm the children. "It's Astari." The command center was buzzing with activity when they arrived. General Torres stood before a large screen showing a small vessel's approach vector. Dr. Adams was there too, already preparing her medical team. "It's definitely one of ours," Rod confirmed, studying the ship's signature. "But it's damaged, worse than we were when we arrived. Their power readings are critical. We're broadcasting welcome messages on all frequencies," a human communications officer reported. "No response yet." Lynn stepped closer to the screen, her eyes flickering with recognition. "That flight pattern. Rod, I think it's your sister's family. Remember how she always compensated for drift by adjusting the lateral thrusters in pulses," Rod finished. "It's Mira. She made it out." The humans immediately sprang into action. Rescue ships were launched, medical teams assembled, and a landing zone prepared. This time, Earth was ready for refugees. "Their engines are failing," the tactical officer announced. "They won't make it to the landing zone." General Torres turned to Rod. "You know this ship. Any suggestions?" Rod quickly moved to the console. "If it's Mira, she'll have modified the emergency landing systems. Let me transmit the override codes, there. That should give them enough control to make it to the ocean. Your rescue ships can guide them in." They watched anxiously as the damaged ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, trailing smoke but maintaining some control. The human rescue ships surrounded it, using tractor beams, technology they developed with Rod's help, to steady its descent. The ship splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, and within minutes, rescue helicopters were hovering overhead, dropping rescue swimmers into the water. Lynn gripped Rod's hand tightly as they watched the rescue operation on the screens. "For life signs detected," a medic reported through the comm, "all alive. 2 adults, 2 children. They're in rough shape, but stable." Relief flooded through Rod and Lynn. More of their people had survived. More importantly, their children would have cousins to grow up with. Hours later, in the medical wing, Rod and Lynn stood by the beds where Mira, her mate John, and their 2 children were recovering. The silver flecks in Myra's eyes were dim from exhaustion, but she managed a weak smile. "We thought we were the only ones left," she whispered. "When the Empire attacked the evacuation ships, we ran. We've been running for so long. Then we intercepted garbled transmissions about Earth, about humans helping refugees." "Rest now," Lynn told her, squeezing her hand. "You're safe here. The humans protect their own, and we're part of their world now." General Torres, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. "Mrs. Mira, when you're stronger, we'd like to know what you saw during your escape. But for now, focus on recovering. Earth's doors are open to any survivors of your people who make it here." Later that night, as their extended family rested under human protection, Rod and Lynn watched their children playing with their cousins for the first time in months. The kids were already teaching their newly arrived cousins about snow, and earth foods, and all the wonders of their new home. "The Empire thought they could destroy us," Lynn said softly. "Instead, they drove us to find something stronger than their weapons, human determination." Rod nodded, watching as Dr. Adams showed the children how to use simple Earth medical tools to monitor their parents' recovery. The Alliance called humans primitive because they're young, emotional, and unpredictable. They never understood that those traits make humans the most dangerous protectors in the galaxy. Through the window, Earth's moon was rising, casting silver light across the sanctuary humans had built for those who needed shelter among the stars. 6 months had passed since the Astari families found refuge on Earth, and word was spreading through the galaxy. 3 more refugee ships had arrived in the past month alone, not just Astari, but other species fleeing the Empire's expansion. Earth had become known as a sanctuary for those brave enough to seek it. Rod stood in the new monitoring station, where he and other refugee scientists worked alongside humans to maintain Earth's growing defensive network. The holographic display showed the positions of early warning satellites, a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology that now protected Earth's solar system. "Message incoming from the Alliance diplomatic channel," announced Tom, one of the human operators. "They're finally responding to our transmissions." The main screen lit up with the face of an Alliance Council member, his expression stern. "Earth Command, this is High Counselor Bren. We have received reports that you are harboring fugitives from Imperial justice. This is a violation of galactic law." General Torres stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Counselor, Earth is not a member of your alliance. We do not recognize the Empire's authority, nor their definition of justice. These people are under our protection. You don't understand the consequences of your actions," Bren warned. "The Empire's fleet is the most powerful in the galaxy. They will not tolerate this defiance." Lynn, who had been teaching a language class nearby, entered the room just in time to hear this. She moved to stand beside Rod, her eyes bright with anger. "The Alliance didn't tolerate our defiance either, Counselor. That's why you abandoned us to die. But humans taught us that there are things worth fighting for." The Counselor's expression darkened. "The Empire demands the surrender of all Astari refugees. You have 48 Earth hours to comply, or they will consider your world hostile territory." "Already considered," General Torres replied, matching the Counselor's formal tone. "Let me be clear, every being who seeks asylum on Earth is under our protection. If the Empire wants them, they'll have to go through us." After the transmission ended, the room erupted in activity. Human officers coordinated with refugee experts, strengthening defenses and preparing for possible conflict. But there was no panic, no fear, just determined focus. "They'll come," Rod said quietly to Lynn. "The Empire can't let Earth's defiance stand. It would encourage others to resist." Lynn squeezed his hand. "I know. But look around, the humans aren't afraid. They've been preparing for this since the day we arrived." In the adjacent room, they could see their children in their school class. Human teachers were calmly continuing lessons while military personnel quietly upgraded the bunker systems. Mai was helping younger students with their work, including some recently arrived refugee children. Tel was drawing pictures with his human and alien friends, their art showing spaceships and stars. Dr. Adams joined Rod and Lynn, holding a tablet with medical data. "We've completely mapped Astari biology now, thanks to your help. Our medical teams are ready for any casualties. But more importantly, look at this." She showed them images of the children's latest health scans. "The children are adapting to Earth's environment faster than we expected. Their bodies are naturally adjusting to the gravity and atmosphere. They're becoming stronger here. Just like humanity's resolve, General Torres added, approaching their group. Every refugee who arrives makes us stronger, new knowledge, new perspectives, new reasons to fight. The Empire thinks we're gathering their rejects. Instead, we're building the most diverse and determined force they've ever faced. A junior officer rushed in with new reports. More ships were approaching, not Empire warships, but refugee vessels. Word had spread about Earth's defiance, and others were choosing to stand with humanity. The Empire gave us 48 hours to surrender the refugees, Torres said, studying the tactical displays. Instead, we'll use that time to welcome more people home. Let them come after that, they'll learn that humanity protects its own, no matter where they were born. Rod looked at the growing number of ships approaching Earth, each one carrying people choosing to trust in human protection. The Empire had tried to break the spirit of the Astari and others who defied them. Instead, they had created something unprecedented, a union of species standing together, inspired by humanity's unexpected strength. The 48-hour deadline was approaching its end. Earth's orbital defense platforms, hastily upgraded with refugee technology, stood ready. In the command center, Rod and other refugee scientists worked alongside human military personnel, monitoring every approach vector to the solar system. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Tom called out from his station. Big ones. Empire warships, at least 20 of them. General Torres studied the tactical display with calm determination. Right on schedule. Status of civilian evacuation? All refugee families are secure in the underground shelters, Dr. Adams reported. The children are scared, but they're being brave. Lynn is with them, teaching them songs to keep their spirits up. Rod thought of his family below ground, Lynn leading the children in songs of hope, my helping comfort the younger ones, Tell probably asking endless questions about Earth's defense systems. They had found something precious here on Earth, something worth fighting for. Imperial fleet dropping out of hyperspace, Tom announced. They're holding position just outside Mars orbit. Receiving transmission. The main screen flickered to life, showing the stern face of an Imperial commander. His uniform was decorated with medals, his expression one of practiced superiority. Primitive world Earth, this is Commander Voss of the Imperial fleet. Your defiance ends now. Surrender the fugitives, or we will reduce your cities to ash. General Torres stepped forward, his voice steady. This is Earth Command. We've heard your threats before, Commander. Our answer remains the same, every refugee on Earth is under our protection. They are our people now. You don't comprehend what you're facing, Voss sneered. Your weapons are nothing compared to Imperial technology. Your defeat is inevitable. Perhaps, Torres replied. But you don't comprehend what you're facing either. You see, we've learned something from every refugee who's arrived here. The Astari taught us about your shield frequencies. The Rigel engineers showed us your weapon blind spots. The others filled in the gaps. Rod watched the Imperial commander's expression flicker with uncertainty as Torres continued. But most importantly, they taught us about your greatest weakness, your arrogance. You think being primitive makes us weak. You're about to learn otherwise. You have 1 hour to surrender, Voss declared, cutting the transmission. The command center burst into activity. Rod coordinated with the defensive teams while new reports came in. More refugee ships were arriving, slipping past the Imperial blockade using routes provided by Earth's growing space fleet. Each arrival brought new knowledge, new determination. Message from the bunkers, Dr. Adams announced, her eyes bright with emotion. The children, they're asking permission to send a transmission to the Imperial fleet. Torres looked surprised but nodded. Let's hear what they want to say. The next transmission to the Imperial fleet came not from Earth's military command, but from a chorus of voices, human children and refugee children together, singing a song of defiance and hope in multiple languages. The simple melody carried their message across space. They were not afraid, because they stood together. Energy spike from the Imperial fleet. Tom shouted. They're powering weapons. They didn't like the song, Torres said with a grim smile. All units, battle stations. Remember your training. Remember who we're protecting. Rod's console lit up with activation signals as Earth's defenders moved into position. The defensive platforms, built with human determination and refugee knowledge, powered up their shields. Squadrons of fighters, human pilots flying ships enhanced with refugee technology, launched from hidden bases. Sir! Tom called out suddenly. New signatures appearing, ships dropping out of hyperspace behind the Imperial fleet. The tactical display lit up with dozens of new contacts. Ships of all sizes and designs, representing species from across the galaxy, more refugees, more survivors, more who had heard about Earth's stand against the Empire. Receiving transmission from the new arrivals, Tom reported. They say they're here to stand with humanity. They say Earth showed them that even the greatest empire can be defeated if enough people stand together. General Torres nodded solemnly. Send to all ships, thank you for joining us. Together, we show the Empire that being primitive doesn't mean being powerless. Being young doesn't mean being weak. Today, we show them what humanity and its allies can do. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as two forces faced each other across the void, an empire that ruled through fear, and a young world that had chosen to protect those who needed shelter. The battle for Earth's skies erupted with a fury that turned night into day. Imperial warships launched their first strike, expecting to easily overwhelm what they considered primitive defenses. Instead, their weapons met a wall of shields built from the combined knowledge of a dozen refugee species, each contributing their understanding of Imperial weaknesses. In the command center, Rod worked frantically at his station, coordinating shield frequencies as Dr. Adams relayed status updates from the bunkers below. The children are safe, she reported. Lynn says they're telling stories to keep their spirits up, stories about Earth, about hope. Multiple Imperial cruisers breaking formation. Tom announced. They're trying to flank our defensive line. General Torres remained calm, watching as the battle unfolded. Just as we expected. All ships, execute pattern dawn. The seemingly scattered Earth defense fleet suddenly moved with perfect coordination. Smaller ships darted between Imperial cruisers, their weapons targeting exactly where refugee engineers had identified vulnerabilities. Larger vessels moved to protect incoming refugee ships still slipping through the Imperial blockade. Imperial commander demanding communication, Tom reported. Commander Voss appeared on screen, his previous arrogance replaced by confusion and anger. This is impossible. You're using tactics we've never seen before. Your weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our shields. That's the problem with thinking you're superior, Commander, Torres replied. You never expect to learn anything from those you consider beneath you. But we learned. From every refugee who came to us, from every story of survival, we learned. Another wave of refugee ships emerged from hyperspace, joining Earth's defenders. These weren't just fleeing civilians anymore. They were ships crewed by those who had found safety on Earth and chosen to return to help others escape. Your empire is built on fear, Torres continued. But we've built something stronger, a community of people who choose to stand together. Every being you tried to break has made us stronger. In the midst of battle. A new transmission cut through all channels, the children's voices again, but this time they were telling the story of Earth. Of how a young, primitive species had chosen to open their arms to those in need. How they had built something new, not an empire of fear, but a family of choice. The Imperial fleet's coordination began to falter. Some ships were breaking off, their crews perhaps hearing in those children's voices an echo of their own suppressed doubts about the Empire. "Commander," Torres said, "you can continue this battle. Maybe you'll even win. But for every ship you destroy, every life you take, 10 more will rise up. Because you've shown the galaxy that resistance is possible. Earth may be young, but we've taught others to hope again." Suddenly, Rod's console lit up with new alerts. Energy signatures near the Imperial flagship. Their crew, they're powering down weapons. One by one, Imperial ships began to stand down. Not all, some remained hostile, their commanders too loyal to the Empire's doctrine. But the battle's tide had turned not through superior firepower, but through the power of choice. Hours later, as the dust settled and the stars shone again, Rod made his way to the bunkers. He found Lynn surrounded by children, human, Astari, and a dozen other species, all sleeping peacefully after the long day. Mai was reading Earth stories to some of the younger ones still awake, while Tel was excitedly drawing pictures of the good ships protecting Earth. "The Empire won't stop," Lynn said softly as Rod sat beside her. "They'll be back." "Yes," Rod agreed, watching their children, all of their children, human and alien alike, safe under Earth's protection. "But they'll find us stronger each time. Because that's what humanity taught us, strength isn't about superior weapons or technology. It's about choosing to stand together, choosing to protect each other." Through the bunker's window, they could see the first light of dawn breaking over their new home. Earth's sun rose on a changed galaxy, one where a young, primitive world had shown that the strongest force wasn't fear or power, but the simple choice to help those in need. The Empire had sought to crush those who defied them, but instead, they had created something unprecedented, a family of species united not by fear, but by hope. And at its heart was humanity, young, unpredictable, and unbreakable in their determination to protect all who sought shelter among the stars.